Move on to our last presentation of the main part of the day before dinner. Please welcome to the stage Stephen Proto and Ken Marschall.
Hello, hello. Is Paul automatically advancing it, or do we go try to?
I think if you just click the forward button.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see what happens.
We're just checking out to see if a video will play or not. Oh, excellent. It wouldn't do that for me at home, so. And going backwards as well?
Yeah.
Now this is a juggling act. But this in one hand, this in the other, and I'm trying to do it.
Do you want me to put the mic on the stand? Do you want me to put the mic on the stand?
No, it's okay. I'll hold it. I think I'll just sort of do this from memory rather than trying to read. So I need my readers to read my little notes. I've got this handy 6-page guide to go by, and it's going to be a process to try to read this. So we'll just clip along. We only have 55 minutes, or less. 55, I guess, yeah. So I'll try to keep the pace up here. Here we go. So this lecture, as you know, is about the lifebelts that were used on Titanic. They were made by Fosbury and Company, which started in the mid-1870s and dissolved, I believe, in 1993. And it is very difficult to find really a lot of information on Fosbury. We have tried and tried, and it's just quite a challenge. Why do we say lifebelts instead of life jackets or life vests or life preservers? The reason why is because that's what they called them back at the period. Every source, virtually every source that you find published at the time, particularly British, used the word lifebelts. And I've met a number of Titanic survivors through the years, and invariably they would use the word lifebelts. Edwina Mackenzie would always say that her steward came to the door and said, "Everybody put your life belts on. Get up, put your life belts on and get up on boat deck." And Ruth Blanchard, same thing. So that's why we're saying life belts instead of life jackets. I just kind of prefer that. That's the form that we followed.
And during the inquiry, British inquiry,
Yeah.
they primarily called them lifebelts throughout, about 172 times.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah.
that's what they were called.
So here's a little thing, a little newspaper blurb, and you can notice that the particular type of life belt that we're talking about here is Fosbury overhead. That was the pattern, the design of what it was called. And this shows how it was applied and how they were put on. And we have a demonstration here for you. One of the stunning replicas that Steve has created. It's the culmination of about 2 years of research that a group of us did. It's an international group that looked into this. And Steve looked into the particular kind of weave of the linen that was used. These were not canvas, they were not cotton. All of this was linen. The twill, and Steve can go into all of that, a little bit later. And this particular design came into use, as far as we can tell, again, the records are just non-existent, around 1910 or 11 or so. And the last advertisement that we can find for this particular pattern is in 1915. And here you see a crewman handling some very, very dirty life belts aboard Olympic, shortly after Titanic sank.
Do you suspect that's possibly soot from funnels that accumulate on the deck?
It could be.
Because the witness marks at the edge of the core,
Yeah.
pretty prominent there.
Yeah, the edges absolutely are all just scuffed up. And here's how life belts were stored, I should say, in staterooms of the period. This is not Titanic or Olympic, it's another ship, but it was a White Star ship. And can you spot the life belts? Up on top of the wardrobe there.
Yeah, just where the steward pulls it down from.
Here's a close-up of them. And images like this provided further reference for us to get these super accurate. We were always comparing the color of the life belt, the main linen with white paint in the background versus the value, the tone, the brightness, darkness of the linen twill or the ties, what the British call tapes, right here. And in some photographs, these ties or tapes or straps are much darker than the white linen. And in other photographs, it's virtually as white as the linen. So we can get into that a little bit later, but there's a lot of variety in these life belts. There were thousands, literally, of workers cranking these things out. Well, that's not necessarily true. But at Fosbury, they had a whole crew, obviously, of workers cranking these things out by the tens of thousands over the years. And although they had certain parameters that they had to stick to, they need to be this size and this, that, and the other thing, clearly there was some handiwork involved, and one worker would stitch something a little bit differently from another one, or just these fascinating variations that we noticed as we studied both photographs and original life jackets. There are 14 so far that we know that have survived the disaster. Now we're actually on Titanic, and can anybody spot where the life belts are stored in this suite bedroom?
Behind the door.
In the closet here, in a rack, a special rack. Here's a close-up. Oops, did I hit something? What did I do wrong? Paul, help me out here. You there? Anybody? Anyway, here's a close-up where you can get a better look. And we were looking at photographs like this to search for stampings or markings that might be on the life belts. And that was another whole big search, because some of them are stamped and some of them were not. Some of them had front stamps and some of them didn't have backside stamps, inside back stamps. So there's just, again, a lot of variety in these things. Hey, Paul, help me out here. Paul, help me. Okay, that's better. What do I need to avoid? I must have hit something to get the full screen. Anyway, this is very familiar photograph, of course. Everybody's seen this. Collapsible D approaching Carpathia. And you can see all of these Fosbury overhead life belts on so many of the survivors, the lucky few. And once on Carpathia, we have a whole group here. These are the small group that were in Lifeboat 1, the controversial lifeboat that had Sir Cosmo Duff Gordon, Lady Duff Gordon, Lucille, and Laura Mabel Francatelli. Here's Francatelli and Lady Duff Gordon and Cosmo Duff Gordon in the background. And, lifeboats on the far left and the far right.
Her life belt's coming up for auction real soon.
Yes, Laura Mabel Francatelli's life belt is going to be auctioned at Aldridge's in just a few days. I think it's April 18th or 15th, or real close. And it'll be very interesting to see what that goes for. Because it's a particularly intact life belt, and it was signed by numerous occupants of her boat in pencil. And those signatures, those inscriptions are still visible today. Being graphite, it just doesn't go away, doesn't fade at all. Once Carpathia got to New York, you saw scenes like this with all the discarded life belts that passengers had worn piled up. And when you think of all those life belts, you wonder why only 14 are known today, but who knows, there may be others still in attics or stored away that have not been discovered yet. So here's this movie, and you've all seen this before, but it's a little bit of action so you can see how the life belts react when you handle them. They are shockingly more heavy than you would imagine. You can see the darkness of the tapes there on the right, the ties versus the white linen. And notice how white the life belts are compared with the white stewards' uniforms. They're almost as white as the uniforms themselves. And that was very informative because, of course, today, every life belt that you find in a museum is this dark, grayish, muddy, tan color.
And you wouldn't see any stamps on this one because I believe they're all wearing them backwards.
Yes, they are.
Twill will attach to the
Yeah, you
life
can.
belt and then wrap.
Yeah, that's funny that they all put them on inside out for this, for the camera here, for the movie camera. Here are some more of this same pattern at the period. Lifeboat drill aboard the Maloya. And a whole bunch of people lined up here. They're all wearing these. And now we get into the war years.
In that photo, the younger children are wearing the same style life jacket.
Yes, notice there's no child size for these kids. We can find no record whatsoever of a children's size of life belt until after Titanic sank considerably, or is it after World War I guess?
Yeah, this is a wartime life belt.
Yeah, we're already in World War I, I guess. And this is another World War I shot. People lined up for a service, apparently. And these are some nurses. Notice how dark the ties look here, almost black. Of course, it depends on the photograph and how it was processed and how many times it was duplicated. That can make things, that really throws off the value. Value meaning lightness versus darkness. So all that had to be taken into consideration. We were trying to figure out how dark the average ties were. And this is interesting because notice that the main linen on these life belts is clearly a darker tone than white. So that was surprising to us. Was it by the time the photograph was taken, were these dyed or painted a light yellow or something odd like that? We just don't know. And how light the tapes look. See this? I mean, these are not dark anymore. These are light now. So that, again, the variety became apparent. Then new styles of these life belts, also made by Fosbury, were made. And you can see this extra little panel down at the bottom here. It's just a whole new thing that they came up with. I mean, in fact, look at this. I mean, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cork panels on each side, whereas the Titanic's only had 3. 3 pockets, I should say. Here's that same style on another ship. This is after Titanic, but before the war. So right after Titanic, they learned something. Ooh, we got to change the design of these somehow. That seems to be the case. And a backside view here. And then around the time of Britannic, again, World War I, hospital ship, you have the Fosbury overhead style there in the foreground, but behind them you've got the body Finch version, which is a new style that came out. And here, inside Britannic, you can see one of these body life belts here on the far left in Sheila Macbeth Mitchell's stateroom. A wonderful photograph taken inside, or it might not have been Sheila's cabin. It might have been somebody named Ward. Sorry about that. And here's another stateroom on Britannic, and you can see the body Finch life belt there stored underneath bed. And then they came out with some new designs, and they also made by Fosbury, one called Fosco and one called Fosbar. So you can see that different design, and here are two ladies wearing these new ones. Great big stencils on the front. And these are so dark looking, it makes you wonder if they've finally graduated to bright orange or something to be recognized, you know, if they're floating around in the water, which makes sense. After the war, just take a look at the tens of thousands of these life belts. These appear to be mostly the Fosbury overhead type, and by now they were outmoded, they were junk, they were trashed, and women were put to work to cut them all up and extract the cork for use in various, for various uses, including making linoleum. Now we get to just a few shots of life belts. I didn't include all of the 14 that are known today, but just a few of them, just to give you an idea. This one was worn by Madeline Astor, currently in the collection of the Titanic Historical Society. And this one, I believe, this was saved aboard Carpathia by Dr. Frank Blackmore, who was a passenger. And
It's at the Smithsonian.
it's currently, yeah, at the Smithsonian. And I have the owners of all this written down here, but it's going to take too long for me to.
Robert Edwards.
Good.
He was working on stuff.
You can help me out.
Nah, you bet.
I'm holding this, and you can. Yeah. This is. Is this in the Mariner? No, this is not the Mariners Museum. This one is currently displayed at the Mariners Museum, I believe.
Edwin, Undertaker at Halifax.
Yeah, Edwin. What's
Acquired
his
it. McClellan.
Oh, McClellan. Yes, right. Yes. So these weren't all necessarily saved by the survivors themselves. They were picked up and collected afterwards, either in Halifax or fished out of the water by crewmen in the Mackay Bennett or the Minia. And here we have one. Do you have the name for this one?
John Dunbar.
John
They
Dunbar.
washed ashore. That's the.
He
story.
collected it on shore. Found it somewhere. Yeah. Souvenir people. This is the
one's
one.
unknown.
This is the one that was apparently displayed for a number of years at a historical museum in Martha's Vineyard. Nobody knew it was there. And since then, it is now in the Boston Marine Society collection, I believe.
That's the last place we saw it.
Yeah. And so this was a big surprise. This is one of the new ones that we didn't realize even existed.
Ernest Sinclair.
Merseyside
Merseyside.
Maritime Museum. Yeah. Some of you may have been there and you've seen it. It's been on display forever. Now this is the worst one, the worst condition that is known or was known. And it was saved by a Croatian crew member aboard Carpathia, and eventually, ended up, he donated in 1932, was it? To the Rijeka Historical Museum there. And there it sat in storage for decades.
And did a lot of restoration work to it. They've done a lot of restoration.
Yeah, this is what they did. They totally went to work on it and patched it up, sewed it back together, cleaned it to the nth degree. And this is what it looks like today. It's the only known Titanic life belt on display in Eastern Europe, as far as we know. Now, this is a long story, and I just can't go into it. If you go to a website, which you'll see at the end of this program, you can read all about all of these life belts and the whole history behind them, whatever it is that we've been able to scope out. But this is a life belt, a front half of a life belt. It's cut at the shoulders, and I acquired it in 1997 from an elderly woman in England who wrote to the Titanic Historical Society with a couple of photographs and said, I have this life belt, it doesn't have any cork in it, I think it's a life belt, it has Titanic stenciled on the backside in big letters, and can you authenticate it for me?
Oh.
And this is right at the time when Titanic was hitting really big, of course, the movie. And So that must have prompted her, oh, I should get that old life jacket and see if I can get any money for it, or find out if it's even real. And Ed Commuta, the president of the THS, looked at the photographs, and he doubted that it was authentic, because we know that no life belt from Titanic actually has Titanic stenciled on it. And at that time, we did not know that any life belts had these purplish stamps on the front of it, believe it or not. Today, we've got about 5 of them that have these identical stamps, or close to identical. But at that time, this was very suspicious. So the DHS referred the inquiry to Don Lynch, who is the historian of the Titanic Historical Society. Don Lynch wrote to the lady and said, I'm passing this on to Ken Marschall, who's done a lot of looking into Titanic's life belts over the years, so he probably has a better idea, but we don't think it's authentic. And I wrote back to her and I said, I'm really sorry, and I explained the reasons. I said, this looks like it's something maybe was made for a play, some kind of a theater production maybe, or a TV movie or something like that. And she said, oh, okay, I didn't know if it was real or not. Would you like to buy it? And I thought, oh, what the heck, you know. I was a big-time collector at that time. Not so much anymore, I've got to downsize. But tell me about it. Yeah. So I wrote back and I said, sure, okay, I'll buy it from you. We agreed on a price, and she sent it to me. And I'll always remember getting this small little padded envelope, literally this big, all stuff, this little padded thing. I expected a box or something. And I opened it up, and here was this thing, no cork, all folded up, and I just thought, what a joke, you know, what is this thing? And I took a close look at the front stamps and things like that, again, and I just said, well, this isn't Titanic, but it is the right style, and it's the right size. So it is the same type of life belt that Titanic had. It's just not obvious, it's obviously not from Titanic, it's from some other ship. So that was exciting to me, and I decided to hold on to it, and I literally sat on it. It was like 9 years went by. And in 2007, guess what shows up at a Christie's auction? Here's one of Christie's advertising photos that was online, and what do we see but the identical stamps that mine had? And the wheels started turning. Here she's holding it up. This one has, this is the Francatelli life belt that came up for auction at that time, and again is coming up in just a couple of days. You can see the pencil writing up here from various occupants of her lifeboat, and on the back side, crew members and fellow passengers. And then, big surprise, for the first time, we see what the back side of it looks like, the inside of the back, and we see these stamps, never seen before, at least not to my knowledge. This just was not publicized. So, you know, wow, look at these life, and of course all I had was the front half of this life belt, so I didn't have any idea what the inside back looked like. And I got more and more interested, and let's see, yeah. This is about 2014 now, and a company called History for Hire contacted me, or I somehow found out about it, that they wanted to make a dozen prop life belts because they were constantly approached by TV, movie productions and so forth for prop, you know, life belts, and they wanted to make a quantity of them. And I somehow got involved, I don't remember how, and I said, hey, I'm your man, I've collected all kinds of information on these things, and they said, yeah, come on up. They were in North Hollywood, they still are. And I was writing to various museums and begging them for dimensions and, you know, trying to see how it compared to my little half front of a life belt. And I was handing all this information over to these guys at History for Hire. And the main guy there who did the tailoring and the work was named Radford Polinsky. He's an Emmy Award-winning wardrobe tailor guy, and he's quite well known in, you know, in Hollywood TV and movies. And he was the guy who occasionally, you know, spent some time at History for Hire to do their sewing and repairing and things like that. He said, I'm going to be the one to make these. So I actually lent them my deflated half belt here. And he took all kinds of measurements from it. And it's so interesting because if you see this, there's original pencil lines from when they were made. They were drawn out to a pattern and the stitching had to follow a pencil line. And you can still see a lot of that evidence on it today and what you call witness marks. And he can go into this a little bit more later on when he starts making the replicas. Here's Radford working on, this is at one point during the restoration where we put in some acid-free, like styrofoam, but it wasn't styrofoam, polyethylene foam things that we carefully cut to what we thought at that time was the right thickness. Turned out to be too thick, so I had him make it thinner later and things like this. But here's Radford working on my lifebelt. And this is a movie, I think. There we go. You can see him. This was very emotional for him because he was re-sewing through the original needle holes that the original Fosbury workers used, that created way back then. He used the exact same holes that are still visible today. And he said that it literally brought him almost to tears to think, you know, what he was doing. He was working on such a historic artifact and actually using the very same holes. There's no sound, but you can kind of get a look at what he's doing and how careful he's being and cinching these up, and it's very cool. At one point he was talking about the dirt, the witness marks again. You can see where this happened, where they did this and that. It's just so interesting. Okay, I'm pushing forward. Nope, I want to go on. Let's skip. Okay. So, as they're making these dozen replicas for prop rental, they just used fake cork. They used lightweight, foamy stuff, which you can see in the background, which they painted to look a corky color. In the foreground is real cork, and that was used for a replica lifebelt that Radford said he would make just for me. That was sort of my payment for lending them my original lifebelt, you know, so they could have access to it and all of that. And here's us, all of them stacked up after they had made them. They did one for some reason in a darker gray. I don't remember why.
They display that one at History and Hire for, they call it really no special, what it would look like now, sort of like an aged version.
Yeah.
And
they did do an aged version for sure with staining and tears. We'll see that in a second.
if you watch an episode of Drunk History, these are the exact ones they used. So look up the Drunk History Charles Jockman. So they're that same.
So here's the aged one that Radford made. You can see the staining at the bottom and some tears, you know, up here that he roughed up the, you know, looking at lots and lots of photographs that I supplied to them. And now we get into these stamps, just looking at close-ups of them. This faded indigo purple sort of color, slightly different colors depending on which lifebelt you're examining. And I don't know if you can see the color here, but you can see that purplish stamp there was very typical of that period and is still used today. That same color appears to be what was used to make these stamps. And a Marconi wireless thing, again, the same purple, very, very common at that time. This is my graphic that I supplied to History for Hire to make the stamp. The exact size, dimensions. I worked and worked on the font to match mine exactly. You can see the scale of it there. Fosbury and Company, manufacturer of life belts, life buoys, and etc. And then here we're checking out the thread count. This comes a little bit later when I was working with Steve to make these replica life belts, helping you so that he could make them as perfectly as we could possibly do it. Inside back, that stamp. and the warranted to pass Board of Trade survey. And on the left is my life belt with the new fake acid-free cork things installed. And on the right is the one that Radford made for me in 2014. And on the left, I believe that's Francatelli's. And on the right, again, the one that Radford made. And Radford did a good job, but as time passed, I realized it wasn't perfect. And I'm kind of a perfectionist. So that's why later on I actually had Steve help me out, asked him if he would be willing to work on it a little bit more and make some fixes to it. This is comparing the stamps on my half-life belt and the Francatelli one, black and white image, and then mine. And again, I guess that would be Radford's on the right. So you get a sense of very, very close. He did a really close job. I just had a few little complaints.
It is really hard to try to get the stamps exactly where you want them for
See
the
the ties here are just, that was the best twill that he could get, the herringbone twill. He said, we're going to have to go with this. And I went, it's kind of dark.
Well, it's dyed cotton.
Probably.
That's what he used, is cotton.
Yeah. Then, we're back to the Madeline Astor life belt. And notice the close-up down here. This was taken a long time ago.
92.
92, thank you. I'm glad you're here. You can barely see Fosbury right here. You can just barely make out the stampings. For years, we never thought the Astor life belt was stamped at all. It just was that faint. And then we noticed it years later in this photograph, and I greatly increased the contrast. But look what happens with time. This was taken, I believe, in 2023, and it's virtually gone now. So you have to be so careful with this ink, not to put these life belts in windows or under fluorescent lights, because this ink is just continuing to fade. You can explain this better than I can.
Jerry Buckland, he has a website, TitanicLifebelts.net, which goes over all the other life belts that are out there. He provided us with these stamps that he found in a mill in his home country, Netherlands. And he saw that some were just faded out completely, some were covered up, and they are, that dark purple that we're used to, and then, gradually getting lighter.
Yeah, this gives you a good idea.
I believe they're flower bags.
Of how it fades. Then we get to the cork itself, and we were surprised to discover as we researched more and more of these, that this cork, again, I talked about how each worker was doing their own individual thing. They were following basic instructions. There are to be so many cork sections in each pocket and all of that. They followed the Board of Trade regulations. They passed the Board of Trade survey. But you can see how different the thicknesses are in some of these cork pieces.
A lot of the pieces were pegged or glued together. They weren't just a perfectly square, rectangular piece. They can get pretty creative in making them fit the pocket that they're intended for.
Yeah, if you look at on the right here, this is the Astor Titanic Historical Society life belt, and the drastic difference in thickness there. And I think this might be another view of the same life belt. And a different life belt, again showing the wonky, carved, chopped by hand and stuffed in there. Just here's some cork cutters at the time, showing what they're doing. Just slicing, chopping, and fitting in whatever they could. Now, I guess this can't be mine.
Yeah, this is the one from the private collector.
The
In the UK.
Which one?
The private collector.
Yes.
Who Casey.
Up in England, yeah. Yeah, during our research, 2 more new life belt surface that we had no idea about, and they did not know what they had either.
This one is very interesting.
Yeah.
during my research, I had some other people come to me and say, hey, I like your light belt, but can you do this to it instead? Because this is what my friends that are curators at the Maritime Museum saw, and they just want to make a few changes. Her friend had one of these, and then I brought it up to Jerry that, hey, there's another life belt out there. Would you like to speak to this person about it? Maybe you can get more information. I believe it was from the Arabic. SS Arabic?
Yes, this gentleman went to what was it? It was like a sale, an auction or something of World War I Arabic memorabilia, and he picked up this light belt on a lark, thinking, oh well, it's from Arabic, it's historical, and that's what I recall from his story. But he didn't realize really what it was until we had friends who looked into this, and
there is writing on the back as well.
we started noticing the very same scribbles in pencil.
April 15th.
The very top there, the top left, yeah.
So that,
Some of the same signatures who were in Francatelli's lifeboat.
that's her signature right there, I think. I think there'll be more close-ups.
Yeah, Oarsman, this guy down here, Taylor, right down here, Oarsman. This was another stunning moment because now we knew that, do you realize what you have? You know, we told this guy, and he was the best guy in the world to work with, still is, was so helpful, was willing to measure things, photograph all that we wanted. Very, very helpful.
There you go.
Here on the left we have a rare photograph of Lady Duff Gordon, her light belt. This appeared in the 1938-ish in some magazine or something, and you can see the signatures that were on her light belt. That light belt has vanished. We don't know where it is today, but you can see some of the very same signatures on the right, which are on the on this new life belt that came along. And this is a side view of that same life belt. You can notice how much thicker the cork is in this one, and how the ties, the twill, the herringbone is virtually the very same value as the main linen.
And we also looked at the angle of the stitching on here.
Yeah.
So if I was to be stitching it, I would be doing it in this direction with the shoulder straps to my right, if I'm right-handed. And I think that's the case with all of them.
I think that's true. Yeah, we didn't realize that until we got into this, that there was that one consistent standard. The stitching is always going in the same direction on every single life belt that we've ever seen.
They probably forced them to be right-handed.
I guess so.
Also,
Whoops, I'll go back.
the life belts, the front, this is kind of with the outside facing in, but the back, it always faces it's either facing forward or in, but the front, it's always facing towards the wearer, I've noticed in all the photographs.
Interesting, more consistency. Yeah. And this is another complicated story, but there was a life belt that was displayed, I think in a museum, but isn't that right, I think? But we didn't know, and the person who owned it didn't know really what it was, or where, I just don't remember the details. I'd have to go through and read. You gotta go to the website, what you'll see at the end of this, because it'll give the full background of this. But he didn't realize what he had either, this other, and of course we recognized it immediately and notified him about it. And the story behind this life belt is worth reading. It's just incredible. It literally was in a dumpster behind a charity shop in Plymouth at one point, because they couldn't sell it and couldn't sell it, and the owner of the charity shop just finally said, just throw the thing away, we're never going to sell this. And that's where it was found and fished out, and it just came so close to being lost.
And that's information's on Jerry's website as well.
Yes, all of that stuff is just really interesting to read through. Now at this point I could kind of pass it along to to Steve because he can tell you what these are. Oh, just, that's forward and that's back.
So when I first started making these replicas, you know, the first place I look online and I look at images of life jackets, and you know, some of them, you know, I get what they're going for. You know, if you look at 1997 Titanic, they don't look anything like they do today. Here's another one. That's a little different. It's okay. It's proportional. You know, for costume.
Could you explain, you know, where you got these, and these are all just homemade?
Yeah, these are just homemade ones that I, you know, looked up, and it was part of my first research. There's another one. It's not filled up very much, and that's more like a nylon drill. That was pretty good.
Yeah, some of these were really paying attention.
Now, Ken has a little bit more information about this one.
Yeah, there were actually, this was made by a guy, I believe in England, and he didn't just make one, he made 4, and he did a good job. He or his friends or his assistants helped to make this a really decent job. There are problems with it that a real expert like myself and Steve can tell right away are not, you know, correct about it. But
I don't believe it's linen.
But it looks good from a galloping horse, that's for sure. And they look so good that several, I think, museums and exhibitions put them on display. As I say, I was able to go through all the different photos, and I identified 4, no less, that this guy had produced. The problem being that they were represented as being authentic, not as replicas. So that was not
I think one was displayed here at one point.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Oh, that's the Radford's age.
History for hire, yeah.
History for Hire's age version. They have this on display inside their prop warehouse.
It was a photograph, I hadn't seen it.
I'll come back to this. That's my son with the very first one I made. So it looks very much like the other ones that I've had.
Well, you went to the Titanic Branson attraction.
Yeah, I saw another kid, he looked really happy with his life jacket on. I'm like, you know what, I can make one of these for my son too.
I'm going to make one for my son and do it better.
The problem is he looks like a child wearing an adult life jacket, not who he wanted to be. So I scaled it down a little bit, and he really liked it. We went on a cruise, he wore it around the ship. If we left, if we watched him, like, where's he going? Him and I, we both went there, just up. So here's I'm doing restoration work to just doing some minor improvements on Radford's work there, which was excellent.
That's where my life belt is today. It's with Branson for their various exhibitions. And at one point, he had a break where he had some time and he drove, it wasn't too far from where he lives in Oklahoma, drove up to Branson and had a couple of hours to take apart some of what Radford Polinsky had done and restitch it tighter and use a better colored thread that we had decided on, various things like that, and put new cork.
And double stitch it.
Fake cork, not real cork. Yeah. Because cork is acidic and it shouldn't be left in there.
Yeah. So I'm going through the original holes that were there that Radford used. Tying it off at the bottom. These are my replicas. This is my process. Put out 2 sheets and then I mark them all up, sew it, flip it inside out and continue.
You have a clear plexiglass template that you use there for tracing.
Yeah, it makes it more efficient. Otherwise, this would take forever to do. And this is my process for stamping them. I roll the ink on the glass and I hand roll it onto my stamps, test it, see how dark I want it to be. Maybe my 3rd try, I'm actually going to put on the life belt, just so I can get that kind of not so wet look. I didn't show it here, but normally I have a piece of acrylic mylar that fills this whole area, and then it leaves a window open so I can kind of guess where the middle will be whenever the cork's in there. Otherwise, you know, I don't want it to be perfect, but I don't want it to be not aesthetically pleasing, that it's going to be all wonky.
I tried to find, I should have mentioned this earlier, I tried to find with Google, what is this font called? And I cannot find a name for that font. You can find it used in various historical signs and, you know, Disney World's Haunted Mansion.
That's what it's
Yeah.
sort of Jumpner.
Yeah.
It's called Jumpner, but not quite.
Really?
It's very similar, but it is the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
same font as the Haunted Mansion.
Okay.
Disneyland. So the thread I use is linen, and the thing is with the white life belt, it's natural color, so it's very yellow appearing. So I pre-measure my working length, and then I lightly bleach it, so it's white and it matches the life belt. So more aesthetically pleasing too.
Yeah. You wouldn't believe the number of tests that he went through trying to get just the right shade of beigey, whitey, gray. Oh my goodness.
So I did some other replicas, and I got some cork in the process. So this is raw tree cork bark, and I cut it for this life belt here. This is the manufactured compressed cork that I use. It's the same weight, it's the same hardness, it's the same thing. You don't notice anything different if it's in the replica at all. I scuff up the ends, but keep sharp edges places. I kind of cut it a little wonky, make it uneven, because those round bark pieces are heated, pressed, and squeezed flat, and then sometimes there's a bend in them. Sometimes they're different thicknesses, it's bark.
Yeah, more thread counts, comparing. We got thread counts from numerous different sources in Europe, and England, and from my life belt, and so forth. And there are little slight variations. Some have 28 threads per inch, some 30, 32. There's no real set consistency there either. So obviously their linen supply came from different batches or different companies.
That's a scope I use. I had a picture of a scope from his fabric, and it was 28 by 28 in several places. There's a scope of my linen that I use.
Yeah, new linen.
New
Because
linen.
again, we decided early on we weren't going to reproduce the faded, aged, damaged, old look. We were going after what did these life belts look like when they were new? What did the Titanic passengers and crew experience? And that's what he's got right here. Exactly, down almost to the ounce. You've got to try this on. You will be shocked. And it is a weapon. If those cork blocks are hard, you have to be careful, and they're heavy, and they really, you get really hot when you're wearing them too. So that night, on that very freezing cold night, this really kept survivors surprisingly warmer than they normally would be just wearing a coat.
On the twill, it's 1.25 inches on all the life belts that we saw. The weave varied a little bit, between 3 to 5. Mine's 4. We found 4 as well. That's the difference in color.
Yeah, this is what I call the zigzag. You know, you've got this, and then this. I mean, I'm too close to really see it, but mine had what, 5 zigzags? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these, and others had only 3. And we knew they were bona fide Titanic life belts. The provenance was indisputable. So again, it just shows you the variety. They got them from different suppliers. They got their herringbone and twill from different places. As long as it met the border trade regulations. Here's,
That's right.
yeah, if we go to the next one, you'll see a close-up of this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, again 5. So that one matched mine exactly. This is a whole different life belt from mine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's another 5.
And even here, you can see the double stitching.
Yes.
One, and the direction it's going in.
Yeah. Originally, we just thought it was a single stitch, and I think it was Casey, maybe, or not Casey. Yeah, Casey, who's
Casey's friend.
who said,
lifebelt. So they're doubled up.
those are
and
doubles.
crossed
Yeah,
over.
that was a big surprise to me. And here we've got, again, I think 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this one. These are all different life belts. But then as we go on, you'll see some that are just 3. I included a few photos of some that are just 3. 1 1/4 inch again. Now this one just has 3. Boom, boom, boom. And another one with just 3. And this was really off-putting when we discovered this. Oh, are these fake? Or has somebody put on new ties on these things? But pretty soon you realize, no, there actually was this variety.
So at one point, we couldn't find the right linen thread. The right linen twill tapes. So we tried to experiment with some cotton, trying to get it dyed just the right color. We want that darker version we saw earlier, but we don't want it to be as white or as light as they were.
I
So-
drove him through hell. We were emailing back and forth. Well, should you go? Yeah, go another 15 seconds in the bleach, and if you can do this again, then let's try that. Oh, it's crazy. And in
Oh
the,
yeah, here we go.
In the
Dry,
end,
100 milliliters, 20 milliliters, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 20 milliliters, 100 milliliters, 1,000 milliliters. It took a little while.
in the end, there was a twill that we settled on that didn't require any dyeing at all, right?
We picked the linen one,
Yeah.
and then we had to bleach that.
Oh, did we? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought after all that work.
Yeah, I think this is the linen,
Yeah.
and now we're bleaching it.
And we could not find a 5 zigzag, as you can see.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. He searched literally the world, not just the United States. China, Northern Europe, Norway, Sweden, it seems to me. He went to a bunch of websites and wrote to these people, do you have this? No, we don't. We can give you 4. And so that's one of the issues. There's no surviving actual bona fide Titanic lifeboat that has 4 zigzags that we're aware of. We just simply had to go with that because, right, we just couldn't find 5.
I think this might be a video. But this is the,
If you click it again, it should start.
so I have the linen, since we don't want to use cotton, we definitely want to use linen, we went with having it manufactured. You have to get a lot of linen if you want to manufacture.
And I guess they couldn't do the 5, is that what happened? I forget.
I guess not. I think
Yeah.
I asked them.
But you were able to
Yeah.
pick the exact,
Yeah, I could pick the color,
Yeah.
definitely. But yeah, we wanted linen. We didn't want cotton.
I sound a little vague on some of this stuff because it has been a few years since.
Yeah, that's 23.
And this is the final best version that you came up with, the final twill, I think, that we decided on. And
So here it always starts here at the top. When I get down to here, I go back and I stick the needle through, and then I start crossing back and I keep going back down
Yeah.
each time. The back faces to the rear typically,
Yeah.
the front always faces to the rear.
all of these details.
This is one I sent Casey that is next to Simon's
Yeah.
original life belt. So this is a side-by-side comparison next to each other now, Photoshop and matched
Yeah,
up.
right. They're lying right down next to it, a direct comparison showing what Steve has produced and how it matches to the real bona fide thing.
That's my aged version that I decided to come up with. There's been a couple of museums that asked for an aged version, and I was able to provide them with those.
How many would you guess you've created at this point for
Linen?
customers?
Linen, there are 40. Canvas, I also make it's cotton canvas, cotton twill, and that's about 230 of them I made.
Oh,
So So, and I think about almost 40.
Wow.
40 kids lifebelts as well.
You have a lot of patience.
It does take it takes 15 minutes per side to hand sew it. And I haven't really found a way to go any faster.
Yeah, this whip stitch is very indicative, typical of these life belts. You'll notice them looking ropey like this, and that was something that I really wanted to get. And Radford at History for Hire didn't quite capture that same thickness and ropiness.
He only used a single thread.
That's
probably.
Yeah.
So I was commissioned to make a life belt from every Titanic movie that is out there. Starting with Atlantic, which is based on the Titanic from 1929. This looks familiar from an earlier slide, where it's the two top halves, and they're matching the back. And this is all cotton. There's the double that we saw earlier. So they must have used real life belts. Here's the double. This is from a 1943 Titanic movie out of Germany. I'm not sure why they came up with this. But I made it the best I could.
Oh, I love that.
Okay.
1953 Titanic, washed out, I believe, at the end. These are real-life jackets as well. So that's where the cord came from. I bought one off eBay, took it apart, measured it, everything. And I recreated the stencil and everything, even double-threaded whip stitch the bottom all the way around, which is a lot longer than a regular life jacket. The tapes run on the inside and the outside, so it isn't fully reversible. 1953, I have to remember. It's a little different. I don't know if they had cord in them or not. They did look very buoyant in the movie. There's a replica I made as well. Using the same cord, they're all pre-cut for me, but I was able to glue and peg some of them together to make a bigger block.
I included this one. This isn't one that you sent me, but notice the really pillowy version over there. So that's different from all the others, and I'm suspecting, just as with Jim Cameron's Titanic, that they made some life belts softer for stunt people. This is the guy, if I recall, that Arthur Peuchen, who comes forward and says, I'll slide down the ropes and get in. Okay, so that's why he's wearing that soft one, so it won't injure him, probably. I thought that was interesting to see that difference in that one scene.
That's Titanic, 1979. The hardest part was the V-neck. So I use ballast tape to finish off the edge because it's only one side.
Well, like with so many of these, you wonder, what were you thinking? But that's me 24/7, you know. Why don't people open up a book or just look at a single photograph? Or, you know, it's just so bizarre to me, the way people make model ships, model Titanics, for example, and, you know, bright yellow funnels, things like this. As an artist, it just makes me just go, oh, please. In fact, sometimes I can't help myself. I have to go into hue and tweak that yellow into more of a pink color, just so that, anyway.
So the proportions look right in this. It's, again, on a flat canvas back, and then these pockets are sewn onto them, filled with foam, and then finished off with a sewing machine.
Yeah, one of the better ones, I suppose.
Yeah, I'd say so. Still would be easy to just do it this way. And Titanic 1997.
And then we have this. And I have to say, as much as I worked on this film, and it was a highlight of my entire life, this was a shocker of a disappointment to me. And Jim, if you ever see this or a tape of this or anything, I apologize, but we've all said things about working on the movie, little moments and little things. I had provided the art department, within which I worked for a number of months, with all of my archival photography of actual Titanic lifebelts and my best estimate. This is back in '96. My best estimate on size, dimensions, all of that. And it all went off, I think, to Mexico someplace, and I never saw another thing about it. And then when I showed up on the set in the fall of '96, no, this would have been later. This would have been in early '97 when they were shooting the sinking scenes. They had tipped the whole set at that point, 6 degrees, as I recall. And everybody was walking around in these things, and I was just, what the hell happened? You know, who dropped the ball on that one? So anyway, I just can't explain why they ended up looking like this at all, but there we are.
So there's my replica. Actually, it's fairly easy to make. You can produce a whole lot of these relatively easily. You can machine sew down the sides. The bottom is machine sewn from the inside, so just flip it out, inside out. It's practical. It's really easy. So my 1-inch webbing instead of twill, so there's no herringbone pattern. It matches the same number of rows. People do seem to like these. They're good for just, hey, I just want to be comfortable, and I want to, wear it for one night.
So here you go. Write this down and go to that website on the top for all kinds of fascinating history on each of these. And then on the bottom there, that is Steve's website where you can learn all about what he's done. There are videos there, movies, links to YouTube, things like that. Anything else you want to say?
I have a card. You can order them, and it also has a link to Etsy. I don't have a link to eBay on there, but Etsy is better. You can definitely order them on there.
And there's one last slide, which I felt legally I should put up here. It's just a few thank yous to people who have taken these photographs and contributed and so forth. So I don't know where we stand on time, but if there's any questions, is there any time for Q&A, or are we done?
We're a bit over.
Uh-oh.
If that's
Can
all
I
right.
just say one thing that I found about lifebelts in my great-grandmother's account? She said everybody had on a lifebelt, and she tried to get one on her baby, but it was too large and would not fit.
I think so. Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, he was 10 months old.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody.